he would impulsively assault homeless children, and to make matters
What? Why? What is the point, bro? The most evil people you've never heard of. I wonder if I'm on this list. What's the most evil thing y'all think I've done? Definitely punch one of y'all through the screen. Dude, I be thinking, oh my god, sometimes bro, my fist be itching, bro. Like, low-key, I'm not gonna lie. If there was a way Twitch made a system where somebody just chatted some bullshit and I can see their face and I'm able to confront them, a lot of people will be getting black eyes from me. Straight up. Murdering the afro, sold cookies, streaming less than 7 hours. These are all terrible, awful things that I've never done. You're not tough, nigga. I am. Do you dare want to tread me? Do you want to try to play with me? I don't play with that. Bro, I stand 10 toes down. Y'all don't want to fuck with my hood. It gets real sweet in Candyville. It gets, or not real sweet. It gets real, Freudian slip. Yeah. Billy Badass over here. Anyways, let's go ahead and watch this.
evil people you've never heard of.
Okay. Nice name, dork.
They say that if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. A quote that perfectly describes Vasily Blin, the deadliest executioner in known human history. Blin got his first taste for blood after joining the
I'm sorry, he's probably a very terrible person, and I'm not excusing these terrible acts. But this photo right here is Aura, unfortunately.
Red Army.
He does look like the type of person to just go in a village and like slaughter a bunch of people though.
During the events of World War I.
Killer?
Over the years, he became the perfect soldier. One who is able to perform tasks effectively, efficiently, and without hesitation.
Damn.
This, of course, really accelerated Blin's military career, as in 1921, he was recruited into the Soviet secret police organization known as the NKVD. One bonus on his extensive resume was his innate ability to remain emotionally numb when carrying out acts of violence. He simply saw it as
Bro, that's a scary thing too, y'all. There's certain like armies that people are just trained to be numb and do shit. Bro, whenever I see somebody like a soldier get exposed for doing like a war crime, I'm like, bro, how did you get to this point? Like, that's a human being you did that to. You took out an innocent civilian and you don't even care?
part of the job.
So I could never be a soldier, man.
Comparative to menial tasks like filing paperwork, we're having to put up with Deborah from HR's incessant complaints that your funny shirt just isn't work appropriate. Blin's unique skill, if you would call it that, quickly distinguished him amongst his peers. If you needed someone dead, Vasily was your guy. His work and unwavering loyalty continued to...
Yeah, he just looks like a mean old bitch. Do you see those medals? Nah, they were probably like, you are the best soldier in Soviet army. You kill 10,000 innocent kids a day. And for that, we give you 10 medals for each 1,000.
push him upward and onward. In just 6 years, he was assigned as head of a newly created branch of the NKVD by Mr. Supreme Soviet leader guy Joseph Stalin. A branch specifically designed for execution. And with that, Blin had become one of Stalin's most trusted...
Hear me out. What if he just had a bad upbringing? What if he just had a bad upbringing and everything just led to this? You know, maybe he could be fixed. Everybody could be fixed, right? No? Alright.
Hey guys, Tom NFG here. You know, only half of you guys are subscribed and even less of you guys have noties on. I hate to be a burden, but you know, I really appreciate it if you hit that sub button and the little bell next to it. You know, it doesn't take long. I know you can get mixed up in the algorithm and everything. But yeah, also tune into the streams. You know, we have a lot of fun over there. I'm telling you, we have a lot of parties going on over there. Yeah, that's it. Bye. Damn.
trusted workers, executing low and high-profile targets without question.
Excellent work, Blin. That goes right up on fridge.
During his service, Blin had personally executed...
Holy zest. This was the dude walking down 1,000 civilians a day? Yo, this looks like the new Cardi Fit post, my nigga.
executed thousands of people, including high-ranking Soviet officials, during the Great Purge, an internal mass execution of anyone remotely accused of opposing Stalin's rule. Blin himself had been spared from the purge due to his repeated proofs of loyalty to the Soviet cause, his magnum opus being his involvement in the Katyn massacre. Now, if you've never heard of the Katyn massacre, I wouldn't be surprised. When teaching about World War II, history classes tend to focus on German war atrocities and kind of skim over all of the other ones, especially the Soviet Union's. Despite the German invasion of Poland...
No, American history, it's like, yeah, they fully show the German history or whatever, and then American history, it's like, all right, we're going to show you it, but we're going to completely water it down and not explain anything. Dog, like so many people didn't know about a lot of atrocities until like social media became a big thing. And then people came on the internet and started talking about it like, dude, example, just like the shit they would do to slaves was like unbelievable, bro. People literally do just killing the babies, raping the women, all of that. That wasn't really universally like known like that. Nowadays, most people know. There's still a lot of people that don't really know about stuff like that. But Japan was wilding during World War II. Yeah, I feel like that was more known though. With American history, the way you learn it here, all the years I remember, it's just like they'll teach you about, yeah, the bad shit or whatever America did in the past. But it's just like so watered down.
And in 1939 and World War II officially starting,
Japan just straight up teaches nothing. Nah, Japan, them niggas, they were just like, nah. I mean, okay, guys, but kawaii face? Now we give you kawaii shows. Now we give you cutesy plushies and anime waifus, guys. Come on, look at this though. Like, don't look there. Just look at this.
the Allied powers of Great Britain and France didn't really do much in retaliation.
Oh, Germany, you better leave Poland alone.
Oh, fair point. Carry on. The big bad Soviet Union had also invaded Poland just a few weeks later, capturing hundreds of thousands of Polish prisoners of war.
Okay, my question is, why was they still riding on like horses when they had cars and stuff?
Many of which were sent to labor camps, but in the spring of 1940, around 22,000 prisoners consisting of Polish officers, engineers, teachers, and other civilians were systematically executed under Blokhin's supervision, with Blokhin himself having personally executed over 7,000 people in just 28 days. Now think about that for a second. 7,000 people in 28 days.
7,000 people. Blokhin, when you reach 10,000 kills, we give you bonus.
That's 250 people a day. Now, Blokhin
God
and his men
damn.
reportedly would work 10-hour days nonstop, so that's 25 people an hour, or one person
Awful
every
accent, it
2
wasn't
to
that
3
bad.
minutes.
Oh my god. What
Now,
the
these
fuck?
weren't directly through ordering his men, but this was by his
Why he Loki got cleavage here?
own hand. Blokhin had pretty much developed an assembly line of death so efficient it would make Henry Ford envious. Prisoners would be escorted into a soundproofed room against a sandbag-lined wall. Without a word, these prisoners' last sensation would be feeling the muzzle of a German pistol in the back of their
my
neck
God.
before being brutally murdered. Wait, a German pistol? I hear you ask. Why would Soviets be
You know,
using-
if I was somebody to get executed back then, that's probably like the best option I could get. Cause dog, imagine being put through torture, bro. Them tying you up with like old fucking tools to use and saw you and shit, putting you in a motherfucking like gas chamber. I'm not doing none of that, bro.
using German pistols? 2 words: plausible deniability. Think of it this way. If thousands of victims in mass graves happen to be found with German bullets lodged in their noggins, who do you
Right.
think's gonna be blamed? Don't look at us. It was them. Blokhin's massacre is regarded as the largest.
Yo, what do y'all think Russian history teaches? You know them niggas teach nothing, bro. They're like, we were right. The whole time we were right. This was all the United States. We did nothing wrong. We are Russia, the most powerful.
Just mass murder conducted by a single person in known human history, even acknowledged by the
They probably
coveted
were
Guinness
proud
Book
too.
of World Records in 2010.
God damn.
Really stretching for content there. It is believed that throughout his career, Blokhin's personal kill count had reached tens of thousands, but his spree would soon come to an end. After Stalin privately passed away in a puddle of piss in 1953, Blokhin was forced into retirement in
Oh my god, now look at him, bro. You could see the PTSD in his eyes, yeah, man.
disgrace, ostracized by the public and stripped of his military honors during the de-Stalinization of the Soviet
saw
Union.
everything?
So, of course, he did what any Russian does when they're sad or happy or breathing. He consumed a lot of alcohol, a habit that eventually led to his death in 1955 at the
Rip
age
bozo.
of 60.
Pavilich.
Right after the thrilling events of World War I in 1918, the Austro-Hungarian Empire had collapsed. With a little bit of elbow grease and the mashing together of various kingdoms and regions, a new political entity was formed. The state of Slovenes, Croats, and Serbs, home to many Slovenes, Croats, and Serbs. One of those kingdoms thrown in the mix was Croatia, the birthplace of this stern jug of juice, Ante Pavilich. His main personality trait was loving Croatia. God, he loved Croatia. So much so that he made a name for himself and
He just looks evil. You could tell. Look at the bushy eyebrows, dude. Look at the hair.
rose through the ranks as a politician and representative in state parliament in order to demand Croatian independence. But this guy, Alexander I, had other ideas. Who's he? Well, he's the Prince Regent in these parts and the one who just got done unifying all of these kingdoms and states. Years and years of political turmoil ensued, which is honestly to be expected when you force a bunch of different political regions together into singularity. In 1929, now King Alexander had hit a boiling point. In order to regain order, he dismantled and banned all political parties, declaring a royal dictatorship. He even came up with a new name for his kingdom, Yugoslavia. Yugoslavia. But since Yugoslavia is not Croatia, Pavilich had it. He fled the kingdom and conspired with revolutionary groups to undermine the rule of Yugoslavia, who responded, "Do you want a death sentence? 'Cause that's how you get a death sentence." And so Pavilich got a death sentence. He was exiled to Germany, but
Bro, is there a dictatorship that ever worked over time? I don't think there's a single one. The person always ended up getting overthrown. Singapore? Singapore's a dictatorship? North Korea? I think for North Korea, I don't know how, like, because literally, bro, the people there have no access to anything. Back then, when these kingdoms were overthrown and whatnot, it was like the people still had power to say things and whatnot, and they would all come together eventually and do it. Bro, over there, they would just all get executed. Like, they literally will drill into your mind. They're like, if you do this, you get executed and your whole family gets executed. And it's like everybody there is scared to do something. But I could see it happen in North Korea revolution. They will eventually fall. The only way I see it falling, like they're gonna have a new leadership. Like let's say Kim Jong-un dies or whatever. Then after, what could happen is like a bunch of the officials, either some of them are spies, they try to overthrow it themselves. Some of them are probably gonna try to go for power. He's definitely planned for it. I'm pretty sure Kim Jong-un was definitely fucking planned for it.
he didn't feel like dying quite yet. He instead skedaddled off to seek asylum in Italy. There, he used his political influence and persuasive stern look to form the Ustasha, a Croatian nationalist movement aimed at achieving Croatian independence by any means necessary. And you can bet your fat tits that means bombings, assassinations, and uprisings. During said uprisings, King Alexander regrettably stated, "If you want a regime change, you need to kill me." They did.
What you do is never say that. Why would you ever f***ing say that? If I heard that, bro, and I'm a civilian, I'd be like, oh, word? Is that a challenge?
Did. On October 9th, 1934, King Alexander I was assassinated by Ustasha member Vlado Chernozemski using a handgun hidden in a bouquet of flowers. Still living in Italy,
Looney Tunes ass death.
Pavilich, along with several accomplices, were determined to be culpable for the assassination and were sentenced to death by Yugoslavia's friend France, who pressured Italy to carry out the deed.
Yeah,
and
get
Italy
the hell
was
out
all,
of here.
"Linguini, fettuccini, we ask a Mussolini." Thanks to his political privileges, Pavilich was only put under house arrest for 18 months.
What?
That'll teach him. Right, France?
That's insane.
Oh, here we go. Looks like Germany's back at it again, and the world collectively Versailles in disappointment. After the invasion
Bro,
of
it's crazy. Like, every time there's a f***ing leader that does something corrupt, they always get a slap on the wrist. Like, they leave, it ends up like they get their crime, and it's always like nothing. Like, 18 months on house arrest, bro, for what he was doing. Dude, I guarantee y'all, with motherfucking, like, Israel and Netanyahu, I guarantee there's gonna be a time when he gets charged. Trump Ben got charged. Bro, Trump got charged, like, a long time ago. I don't think they'd ever, bro, just because he's a U.S. president, I don't think they'd ever, like, arrest him. But I feel like for Netanyahu, bro, like, the whole world sees, like, what the f*** is going on, bro, in Palestine and shit. Like, basically, nobody's with them anymore. Like, there's not a single country that is still, like, with them and what they're doing. He's probably gonna get charged eventually in the future for some type of crimes, but it's just gonna be minimal. It's literally gonna be like a slap on the wrist.
France in
I guarantee that's gonna
1940,
happen.
Nazi
Like, they're barely
Germany
gonna do
invaded Yugoslavia in 1940.
And honestly, it's like disappointing, bro, that this always happens. Because you could see, bro, the past repeats itself. Y'all saw that nigga we just saw in this video, bro. He barely got nothing.
This ultimately resulted in Pavilich being installed as dictator to a newly independent Croatia. The mean mustache himself even met with Pavilich and gave some pointers in the art of ethnic cleansing, the only art he ever saw any success in. But Pavilich would soon put this advice into action. During World War II, Pavilich had created his own network of concentration camps run by his beloved Ustasha, one of which being the Sisak concentration camp, the only known camp specifically designed for children. These camps carried out the collection and mass murder of nearly 400,000 Serbs, Jews, and Romani, with an additional 300,000 either exiled or forcibly converted to Eastern Orthodox Christianity, all for the sake of Croatian ethnic homogeneity. Towns were completely ransacked, villages were outright destroyed, and hundreds of thousands of innocent lives were lost. These actions gave the Ustasha notoriety that struck fear into the hearts of anyone who
Bro, do they think that's gonna solve anything, though, in the long run? Okay, you got rid of all the, I don't know, whatever the immigrants or whatever. What is that gonna solve, bro? They're still gonna be around the world anyways. Probably gonna come back. It's not gonna do anything.
crossed their path. Nazi Army General Edmund Gleisa-Hochtenau witnessed
Holy
firsthand
name, nigga.
the atrocity of Pavilich and the Ustasha, saying, quote, Our troops have to be mute witnesses of such events. It does not reflect well on their otherwise high reputation. The Ustasha have gone raging mad. That's pretty telling when even a Nazi general thinks you're being a bad dude.
Damn.
After the Axis powers fell,
That's so fucking ironic. Nigga, why is you talking?
Pavilich got the hell out of Dodge, eventually fleeing to Argentina in 1948. But then some other surviving Ustasha members arrived. After a quick
Bro, did like all the racist leaders just go to Argentina after? Yo, what was up with Argentina back then? Why were they just accepting the worst people ever? Hey, Argentinians and shit, but dude, yo, y'all's history is cooked, man. Every other South American country, I do not be seeing anything about that. Every time it's like Argentina accepted these terrible war leaders.
reunion of high fives and smooches, the gang wasted no time in forming the Croatian Liberation Movement. Persistent little buggers, weren't they? They were basically trying to control this from over here. It didn't work. After an assassination attempt in 1957, Pavilich hightailed it out of Argentina, eventually ending up in Spain, where he died of his injuries 2 years later.
Yeah, rip Bozo.
This is Idi Amin, regarded
Idi
as one
Amin.
of the cruelest dictators in Ugandan history. He had humble beginnings back
In Uganda, sir.
in 1946, where he served in the colonial army as a cook's assistant. In addition to cooking up a good steak, Amin was raring to have a job well done in his military career, so he speed ran through promotions within the Ugandan army, making it all the way up to
Bro, the thing is with Africa, bro, there'd be a lot of dictators. Like, it's actually crazy, bro. Bro, y'all think the US or whatever in Europe's like political whatever politicians are bad, dude. Africa, there's literally whole memes on how like the presidents are corrupt. They do not give a fuck. They will be obvious with it.
captain in 1962.
I'm the captain now.
All of this impressive progress received recognition from Ugandan Prime Minister Milton Obote, and a friendship formed. Hey, hi. One that would be fruitful in many shady activities, including ivory and gold smuggling. After being threatened with investigation by the Ugandan parliament, Obote overthrew King President Person Mutesa II and seized the position for himself in 1966. The ex-king was exiled to the UK, where he lamented over the loss of his country, ultimately drinking himself to death just 3 years later.
Poor little guy.
After the coup, Obote promoted a now more rotund Amin to commander of the Ugandan army. But all good times must come to an end. Obote himself was a terrible ruler. His regime was plagued with corruption and terror, resulting in nationwide starvation
Damn, it's crazy. Nothing ain't changed.
and cruelties toward the Ugandan people. Not surprisingly, Obote had experienced a failed assassination attempt where he was shot through the teeth and out his cheek. The assassin missed, and Obote is pissed, so in response, he had any and all political parties banned, with their members jailed for life. Meanwhile,
fuck?
Amin was in the corner doing his own thing, building up his beloved military for less than necessary fighting in neighboring wars. Obote didn't like that, and Amin didn't like that Obote didn't like that, so they began not liking each other. As a personal bitch slap, Obote had stripped Amin of his freshly granted commanding privileges and threatened him with jail time for misappropriating military funds. But this only
That disturbed me way more than it should have. Did we need to see that? I feel like I was actually learning a lot.
activated Amin's trap card, prompting a takeover of the Ugandan government while Obote was out and about doing president things. The Ugandan people, having just gone through years of suffering under Obote's regime, were pretty thrilled and cheered Amin's efforts. Now in control in 1971, Amin declared that the military would temporarily run the government until new elections could be run. He even
That is never a good sign. If your government is calling for a military to run it, can't America do that too? Is that martial law? Wait, what is martial law again? Oh yeah, the military takes over the functions of the civil government. Yeah, y'all, if they ever implement martial law here, just know we're cooked. That is a day I never want to see in that country, dude. I said that country, this country. We have guns. Yeah, that is true. People would fight back. That's the difference between other countries. Because, bro, if you try to come in somebody's house and say, no, you got to do this or something, bro, somebody's going to be pissed off, bro, and just pull out the blood, bro.
promised to free all political prisoners. But he never did. In reality, he flew too close to the sun, taking comfort in its warmth. Just a week later, Amin declared himself president of Uganda,
Did he give himself all these badges? Like, nigga, we get it, bro. You're the leader. Shit.
commander-in-chief of the armed forces, Ugandan Army Chief of Staff, and Chief of Air Staff. The ego's starting to take over a bit. With this uncontested power,
Blazing.
Amin began systematic executions of anyone who, he believed, would oppose his rule. Roughly 15,000 civilians had disappeared, now believed to have been
What?
kidnapped and given front row tickets to Amin's newly constructed state-of-the-art torture facility. However, this failed to slake Amin's thirst
Oh my god, yo, imagine being locked up in this, bro. From your leader.
for blood. He soon expanded his list of victims to various groups throughout the country. We're talking artists, journalists, lawyers, students, senior members of government, foreign nationals, anyone who had even the most infinitesimally small tie to Obote. There were even rumors of Amin being a cannibal, or at least having tasted human meat, though it seems like he rated it 1 star as it was, quote, too salty for him. Human rights organizations estimate that between 300,000 to 500,000 people were slain under Amin's tyrannical rule. Known as the Butcher of Africa, Idi Amin not only murdered his own people, but devastated the Ugandan economy as well. He had expelled around 80,000 business owners and seized their property. So Amin walked up to an African stand and he said to the man running the stand, "Hey, bump, 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 get out of here or I'll kill you." Then he waddled away, waddle, waddle. These businesses,
Yeah, the leaders are bad, but dude, this dude was insane.
which were basically the country's economic backbone, were handed off to his inner circle. And they all quickly went bankrupt from mismanagement.
Nice.
Edie? More like idiot. Anyway, the businesses accounted for about 90% of the government's tax revenue, so government funds went poof. Yeah, just like that. Amin became blinded with power, so much so that he was unable to see the inevitable brick wall that the country was heading towards.
Crazy thing is, he could have turned his country into like goddamn North Korea, bro. Imagine he was like still in power now and like nothing ever happened to him and he didn't dip.
His closest
That's a
cabinet
scary
members,
thing
realizing
about
that
it.
murdering everyone and crippling an economy aren't really the best long-term policies, started to defect, abandoning Uganda to seek safety elsewhere. Amin even began losing control over his own military. Coups and mutinies were commonplace as officers fought for power.
I always wonder why they don't do that. Like, why in like North Korea do none of the officers like step up and they're like, no, we're done with this? That probably happened.
But he had a plan. I have a plan.
Brainwashed. But the thing is, okay, not all of them are, especially the top officials, like they know. A lot of the citizens, like almost all of them, are basically brainwashed. They have no choice. They have no media. Even then, though, I'm pretty sure South Korea sends like leaflets to North Korea and they tell the citizens about all the bad things that the country does or whatever. And it's like, there's gonna be civilians that know the things that are going on clearly, like they can tell. But like definitely the government officials, they know 100%. I think it's just them being scared that their family's gonna get executed.
We're gonna take Tanzania. Alley-oop. He's just not as funny as oversimplified.
Damn.
Uh-oh. Tanzania fought back hard. In order to save face, the former 10-time Ugandan light heavyweight champion Amin had a plan. I have a plan. Yeah, Amin actually suggested a boots to asses 1v1 super slam. But the Tanzanian president,
I'm not gonna lie, it's kind of valid. Nowadays, if world leaders solved their problems like that, everybody would be happy. Probably would have lost.
had a plan of his own. In the end,
Damn.
Amin was deposed and fled in exile, where he apparently ate up to 40 oranges a day until his death in 2003.
Ew, bro. 40 oranges a day? I can't even eat the same food like 3 days in a row, bro. Luis
Our last stop
Garavito.
is definitely no picnic. Now, if this video wasn't satisfying enough, I do have more of these little evil bastards for another video. So if you want me to make it, let me know in the comments. While you're at it, let me know who you would want me to cover. For our last entry, we'll be taking a trip down to Colombia. Now, any of you Colombians out there might be familiar with this guy, but for those of us who don't put cheese in our hot chocolate, let me introduce you to
What do y'all do in Colombia?
Luis Garavito, perhaps one of the most prolific serial killers in modern history. This guy was a straight-up monster. Appropriately nicknamed La Bestia, or The Beast, Garavito was arrested in 1999 and convicted of murdering 193 children. Garavito's crimes began when he was just 15 in 1972. He had reportedly suffered severe depression, psychosis, and paranoia, allegedly stemming from an extremely abusive and traumatic childhood at the hand of his father. Pairing all that mental anguish with crippling alcoholism and an aggressive personality, Garavito began compulsively forcing himself on young children. Disgusted by his own actions, he had attempted to seek help, attending church sermons, AA meetings, and even seeing psychiatrists, wanting nothing more than to live a normal,
So did he tell them about it and they didn't like arrest him or do nothing?
but he was never able to claw himself out of the dark hole that he was in. Look, there's no denying that childhood trauma is tragic, but when you commit unspeakable acts of violence against innocent children,
out
or
the wood
really
chipper,
anyone for
deadass.
that matter, sympathy kinda goes out the window. Being a victim's one thing, creating victims is another.
Yeah, I'm sorry. The victim thing, though, that could never be an excuse. Yeah, somewhat. It is kind of sad whenever somebody does that and they were a victim. But, dude, you know how many victims there are out there that are normal? They could be normal, bro. Like, that's not a full-on excuse for you, gang.
Moving into the 80s, Garavito's habits had only escalated. He emphasized that his urges to act out were constant and, according to him, uncontrollable. He would impulsively assault homeless children, and to make matters
What? Why? What is the point, bro? Out of all things, bro, a homeless person's already bad. A homeless child?
worse, began carrying razor blades and lighters to satiate his growing lust for violence. After each outburst and eventually regaining his composure, Garavito claimed that
This legit sounds like an anime villain.
he would
So no way
be
this is real.
overwhelmed with guilt. He would write down the names of his victims in a notebook and pray for their safety. At this point, his victim count had crossed above 100. Devastated by his supposedly uncontrollable impulses, he desperately tried to find any answers as to why he was the way he was. He looked to religion, astrology, the occult, really anything that could potentially
just
bring
psychotic.
him some
Mental
revelation.
illness.
But during this little literary leap, he had
And he's
stumbled
shocked.
upon a certain notorious autobiography.
Yeah, pack it up, gang. Pack it up, gang. If it couldn't get any worse, bro. That is the one book he actually found. Like, damn. Yeah, I gotta read this to help me. This gotta be the worst setup for shit ever.
Biography. With each turn of the page, Garavito really started relating to this Adolf guy. I mean, they both suffered abusive childhoods, lived in poverty, are both complete dickholes, you know, that kind of stuff. Luis even went a bit further and began idolizing one Campo Delgado, a Colombian
Who dat?
serial killer who had publicly
Damn.
murdered 28 people, including his own mother, in the 1980s. More specifically, he admired the national attention that Delgado received and wanted to experience that firsthand. Now, the 1990s is where Garavito really went off.
Yeah, you would become a celebrity back then if you were like a serial killer. Nowadays, you're just gonna get caught. After like 1 or 2 kills, bro, you're caught. Cause like DNA testing and everything and cameras. Bro, I'm so glad to be born in this era and not be having to be scared that a serial killer's gonna walk down the street.
Off the rails. He was now apathetic in his crimes. He felt nothing. No remorse,
Damn.
no sorrow, nothing. With all emotional ties cut, Garavito's actions hit an apex. Across this decade, Luis committed the mass murder and assault of hundreds of children. In disguise, he lured victims into secluded areas in broad daylight where they were assaulted, stabbed, cut, burned, beaten, eviscerated, and dismembered.
God
After their
damn.
passing, the victims were often placed in dozens of mass graves scattered across the countryside, with some containing as many as 40.
Okay, what was the Colombia police doing? Did they not have like a police department at all? This many people? You tell me like bro was not their number one priority? Okay, obviously their funding was definitely different. Like they don't get the same funding as like the US and shit, but dog, for somebody to go on this long in your country, this is a clear lack of police and goddamn government.
Bodies. Now, you can't really hide violence of that caliber for long, so eventually the graves were discovered in 1998 and an official investigation was launched. Because of his continued alcoholism, Garavito's work was sloppy. He would often leave articles of clothing, empty liquor bottles, and various belongings at his crime scenes. Honestly, it's kind of weird that it took so long to get caught, but the mountains of evidence did eventually lead to his arrest in 1999.
And there's no bribes. He wasn't bribing them with money, nothing. They were literally just lacking work.
While being interrogated, Garavito confessed to the murder of hundreds of children. Now, of course, in order to prevent the large, sandpapery, unlubed fist of YouTube from giving my
Right.
butthole an identical neighbor, I of course cannot go into the nitty-gritty of the crimes. You morbidly curious little deviants would have to look that up for yourselves. But I'll say I didn't warn you. In
Yeah,
the
I'm
end, Garavito's crimes rightfully warranted a sentence of up to 1,853
Bro, just execute him.
years
Seriously?
and 9 days in prison. That's pretty great. Except for the fact that Colombian law at the time prevented any sentence from being longer than 40 years.
I don't know what was going on with Colombia's government, but dude, how does that even make any sense? There is no point in adding a law like that.
And get this, since he had given a full confession and even helped investigators find the bodies, his sentence was further reduced down to just 22 years, and the Colombian population
It crashed out, dude. This is the call for an overthrowing of a government, dog.
was pissed. But luckily, in 2021, Garavito's parole was personally denied by the Colombian president,
Okay,
who
that's
vowed
good.
that he would never be a free man again. And he never was. Luis Garavito was diagnosed with eye cancer and died in prison in 2023.
God always has an answer, bro. He had an answer for you, and it was for you to get packed the hell out of here.
That video was a real doozy, wasn't it?
Good video. Wow, yeah, we did learn about some new evil people. I guess we're gonna add that to the roster. Yeah, if you're watching on the tube, make sure to join the Discord and watch the streams.
Subscribe to Tommy NFG.